Hi everyone, I am Hansal Wadwani, Chief Executive of the Seventh Fold, which is a small well-being and HR firm. I'm also a psychotherapist, and today on International Men's Day, I wanted to talk about mental health of men, something that we usually don't talk about. So with me, I would like to call upon my friend Vivek Kapoor to join me in this conversation. Just give me a minute to figure out. Okay.
Oops. I think the camera needs to be turned. Hi, Amsaz.
Perfect. Hi, Vivek. Welcome to this session. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Happy to be here and really glad we could do this, and it's been a while. But before we get carried away in our conversation, I'm just curious, and I'm sure everybody is, Hamsaz. It's International Men's Day, and we are discussing men's mental health. I'm not able to connect the dots. You need to help me out here immediately.
Yeah. So firstly, I want to wish you a happy International Men's Day. And yeah, why the topic? It's a very important question actually. So I want to share with you some very stark and very dark statistics that have recently come out by the NCRB. This is a bureau that publishes statistics. And they have said that in 2021, 73% of all suicides were that of men. Okay, you can see the big skew. I'm going to let that settle in for everyone who is listening into this conversation. It's a huge skew. Already in our country, we have a lot of suicides, almost about 160,000. And out of that, we're talking about almost 120,000 deaths happening only of men. So clearly there is something here that needs to be talked about. Clearly there is something that we need to all be mindful of and work towards changing. Because here I don't feel that the problem is that men have more disorders or men have more mental health issues or more distress. It is basically the difference is in the way that men and women are dealing with emotions. Women probably are expressing more, are seeking help more, they're reaching out to counselors more, whereas men are suffering in silence. And that is the big difference. But before we, I just want to quickly share with everyone who's listening in that when I talk about mental health, because the topic of today is mental health, it's important to understand that mental health is not equal to mental illness because there is such a stigma sometimes for the word mental health. So important to understand mental health is not equal to mental illnesses. We all have a mental health, just like a physical health, and it goes on a spectrum. Sometimes we feel really good, sometimes we may not, sometimes we may slip into mental illnesses. So it's always working on a spectrum. So that's just sort of to explain to everyone when we use the word mental health, what really do we mean? Yeah, so that was the context of this conversation.
So, literally speaking, if you're saying 73%, I mean, I don't want to make jokes about it or anything. It's very serious, but we literally are a dying breed. But before we get further into it, and you're saying that this kind of an alarming statistics is affecting us, then why is it that still till today, men are shying away from expressing or talking? Why are we not open? And I'll tell you very honestly, it took me the longest time ever to tell anybody that, hey, can you just help me? I'm not feeling so well or whatever. Why is it? And I'm an urban male for all practical purposes, educated and everything. Why does it take so long, or why can't we not express ourselves?
So, again, very important question. I mean, if we look at mental health, emotional health plays a very big role in that. And look at how we are today teaching our boys about emotions. Actually, we don't teach nobody about emotions, right? In school, no one teaches us emotional and social skills. Though it's changing, but very slowly. And what do we tell our boys? We tell them, don't cry like a girl. We say things like, "Mard ko dard nahi hota." All of this that is created somewhere by the media, the AdWords, our upbringing, which has created this toxic masculinity, where men are expected to be strong, men are expected to be self-sufficient. They should not have to ask for help. They should be able to do it themselves. That they should be able to soldier through issues. They should not talk about it, not cry about things. So when there is such a strong unconscious bias that is there in our world right now about how men should be, and so at any point when men sort of don't fit this box that we have kept them in, we either discourage them outwardly, overtly, or sometimes just through, our expressions, or just through, more sort of covert or less obvious ways that, hey, this is not what you expect out of a man. Yeah. And so obviously they don't seek help. They don't know how to deal with their emotions.
So literally, I mean, we are a dying breed, so to speak. And we are still not talking about it because we are mentally conditioned that we shouldn't. I'm just going to take a moment because a lot of people are joining. There's Rajesh Mansukhani, there's Shweta Roira, Priyanka, all of them joining in. And I'm happy that, it's not just men who are joining in, but women too, who want to know probably more. But I'm going to get back to the conversation with, there's something very peculiar. And I want to, I want to put on something or discuss from my personal experience. When you're at that age, see, for a man, it's very important to have a good, sound career. You've always been taught that you're the hunter, you have to be on your feet, and you're supposed to support or whatever. And when in your prime of your life, 30, 35, that's the time where you finish your education, your career is kind of taking off. That's also the time when you are actually seeking a life partner. Okay? Now, in today's day and age, it's not just I'll go to work and come back and, whatever. So you need to find that balance because women today are also demanding not just more time out of men, which is great, as a spouse or, as a partner, you need more time with them. So you're straddling between a career, which is very demanding because you're at that stage in life, and just at that point of time, you decided that, you want to have, seek a life partner as well. So that puts so much pressure. Sometimes you're just so stretched. I don't know how many of us even realize it, but I don't know how does one go about dealing with it, and what is it? Is it natural really to feel like that first and foremost, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's extremely natural to feel that pressure. In fact, the same NCRB statistics does talk about the fact that between 18 to 45 is the peak of the number of suicides in that age range is the maximum, and that's exactly sort of in line with what you are saying, because that's the time where you have to start thinking about your career, make something out of yourself, also get into a relationship, get married, have kids, balance it all. And now clearly the whole diaspora is changing, right? Earlier men were just expected to, be the financial providers, whereas now it's changing. And similarly for women as well. Earlier, most of the women would be fine with, being stay-at-home moms or taking care of home, whereas now more and more women are getting into the workforce. And just like women have to deal with a lot of stereotyping at the workplace, similarly, men also have to deal with the stereotyping that comes with trying to take on a caretaker's role. So, for example, if a man is to go to his boss and say, hey, I want to leave because my child is sick, there will always be a little hesitation. You may end up getting the leave, but the first thing would be, hey, so what about your wife? Why do you need this? Yeah. So there is that subtle, again, the unconscious biases, which says that, okay, you don't need to be the caretaker or the care provider Whereas in practicality, that's changing. Men have to also play that role along with the role of being a financial provider. So first they have to straddle that. Today, even paternity leave, I mean, there are so many organizations that still don't give paternity leave. So they don't think that when a child is born that it's important for the father to as well take care of the child, right? Of course, again, that is changing, but very slow. In fact, in my previous organization, we used to give paternity leave. And we had a lot of times where the men would come and say, hey, can I take my paternity leave later on? I mean, not at the time of the child's birth. Probably because even the women in the house don't expect them to be around to take care. That okay, this is not your bit. This is our bit. We will handle it. So obviously they have to fight that because they may want to be taking care of that, right? So that whole the stereotyping that we've done about what men's roles are, what women's role are, needs to change. So one of my family members was recently saying this, that our ads are so biased against women, against men. And I was like, what are you saying? They're biased against women, And he said this. He said that if you see any ad, usually they'll show the woman taking care of the child, the baby, and the man being the goofy person not knowing what to do. He said, that's not true. I take care of my child as much as my wife does. So I think, yes, the roles have sort of changed, blended, and that's a great thing. But we need to then remove those biases as well.
See, which is interesting, you pointed out about your cousin and the biases in the ad. I've been a hands-on father, and I've enjoyed it. The proverbial nappy changing and everything, going to work, coming back, and of course dozing off while driving. But I don't know how many people will agree to this or not, but somewhere, because we are contributing towards or playing an active role in the upbringing of the child, the mother, there's still a little bit of a bias in the sense that God forbid if the child errs in any way, or as the years go by, I think for the mother they still say, oh, she really tried and she put in so much of an effort. The father is invariably told, oh, he was never around, so the child never really had a father figure to look upon. Now, typically, who is going to give you that? It's like outside. How many people, like when a woman goes into labor or whatever, I'm not discounting what they go through or whatever, but the man is also chewing his nails off, So even in the upbringing, when you're contributing and active, to be shafted, so to speak, or to be told that, oh, maybe it was the fault lay a little bit more with the father because he was not around or whatever. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I do feel that it's very situational. I mean, I'm sure there are situations where the father is blamed for the errors of the child or the upbringing of the child. But I do also feel that a lot of times women take the brunt, or the mothers take the brunt, because clearly they have spent more time with the child. And so it sort of becomes, that, okay, what have you done with the child? Because the father was not there, but you were there. So what did you do about, or why is he the way he is, in terms of whether it's his character, values, whatever that goes wrong. So I think that the men and women share the blame equally. It's just in different ways for men, but I feel that that's the blame that both parents take.
But I'm telling you, I mean, the kind of pressure that we have to deal with, one, the biases at work, that, like you very rightfully said that, oh, so, if I have to say that the child's unwell, or I need to go, or I need to be with, there, but yeah, I mean, but I'm sure you have help at home. So it's very subtly sometimes, put in or whatever. But yeah, I think it's changing. And there's Pooja Mulchandani who joined in. Hi, Pooja. Another thing I want to ask you is, you mentioned this very interesting aspect that the age bracket of the men who are committing suicide today is 18 to 45, which actually tells you that there is no age bracket or age or time, in one's life that one is vulnerable. Okay. Now, again, if you look at it, see, for a man, and I'll tell you for my own personal, this thing is, you enjoy bringing up the child. The child is always going to be leaning a little more towards the mother because she's a nurturer or whatever. But we as fathers look forward to that certain age when the child is a little grown up, because you want to have that conversation. You want to sit across the table and have that, conversation, or at more of an adult. But today, if you look at it, that stage is when they're going out of home either to study or to seek a career. You're not stopping. It's not like, I'll study here, I'll have to be with my parents or whatever. And rightfully so, wherever your life or your career takes. So that critical phase, we are missing out really. So I'm not going to, it's just an empty nest is not just affecting a woman, but a man too. And the vulnerabilities are so high there that you feel, I've nurtured, I've given, and I'm at loss somewhere. I'm not saying you have to come back and you have to repay. But isn't that something that should also be addressed in some way? And how should one address that?
Yeah. No, I think in terms of, obviously for men probably, the connection that they feel with an absolute baby is very different as versus say they probably feel more connected when the child is a little grown up and they can have a more better sort of conversation. Again, it's for some men. I don't want to generalize it because there'll be some men who would be very good at taking care part of the baby. And so, of course, those men, when they realize that, okay, the child's grown up and now no longer needs them or is independent themselves or is gone abroad, there is that sort of an emptiness that is there. The issue is that mental health issues will continue. They'll take different forms, right? The issues that will be there at the age of 18 or 30 when you're trying to settle in and balance it all and work on your relationship issues, then working on balancing with the child, family, changes that it brings in, etc. And then dealing with a lot of loneliness that comes in probably with a little bit of an older age. The issues will change, but what remains constant with men is the way that they're dealing with those issues, right? What remains constant is their inability to share, their inability to talk, their inability to say that, hey, I am currently having this issue, I need help. And those are the things that whole struggling inside, that then creates a bigger problem for them, right? Just like we have to heal our physical wounds, we have to heal our emotional wounds also. Whereas they just keep moving on from, one situation to the other. And in fact, I had a client who I was dealing with for depression, and he told me this that at the age of 12, when his father passed away, and he was crying at the funeral, the elders in the family came to him and said that, hey, you can't cry because now you are the only man in this family and you have to be strong. So, and since that time, he said he never cried, and he's unable to cry now. He's unable to deal with certain emotions because he didn't know how to deal with them, right? So from such a very early age, for a lot of people, these issues start, and they don't know how to deal with them. They are not trained how to heal their emotions or how to handle their emotions. All they know is let's just suppress them. Let's just put up a brave front. Let's just look like we're strong, and that's good enough. So that is where the whole number of suicides of men is so much higher because they are just sort of keeping everything inside.
Bottle up. So there's Aditya Heble who's joined in, a friend of mine. What's up, Mr. Kapoor is what he says. Aditya, I think you should pay attention to this conversation to get some tips. Hamsaz, while we are talking of the vulnerabilities and the age groups and things like that, I want to understand, because you're a professional and you deal with it. Of course, you have individual clients as well as you also consult corporates as well through your company, the Sevenfold. What I want to understand is that if this is a reality and it is really existing and we can't shut our eyes to this, how does one deal with it at different stages, maybe on a day-to-day? Which means the sense that I'm getting from what you're saying is that the situation will keep changing. There would be something or the other which is constantly going to be hassling us and bringing us down, And for us to constantly put up this brave front is very exhausting. It's not humanly possible. At least I can say this openly. It's not humanly possible to always put up a brave front. So how does one cope with something like this?
Yeah. So I think what is very important, firstly, for all the men who are listening in, that please know that मर्द को भी दर्द होता है. Have that change the because a lot of times we carry the unconscious biases as well about our own gender. So we feel that no, this is what a man should be, and then we try to conform to that sort of category. So it's important to know that this is a false facade that is sort of under the garb of strength that you have to soldier through. That crying is weak, sharing your emotion makes you weak. So all of these unconscious biases we have to be extremely mindful of, and try to get out of it. Try to not fit ourselves into that mold. So that is one important thing for men. The other most important thing is talk, share, and for that, one of the things that I would like the men to do is just that today, if you are someone who's struggling with certain emotions or issues, drop a message to someone who is close to you, someone who you trust, and say that, hey, let's meet up. I would like to talk to you about something. What it does is that the next time you meet this person, the person itself is going to say, hey, you wanted to talk about something. What is it? So it gives you an easy road in to talk about what's going on with you. Otherwise, if you're just meeting up for fun, partying, you're talking about politics, sports, this, that, it's very difficult to bring yourself in this and say, hey, I'm struggling with this right now. So just that one line, please do that. The other thing is that there are different other ways of expressing your emotions. If words are not your cup of tea, there are different ways. One of the ways is art therapy, where you use art to express your emotions. Mind you, it is not using art to distract yourself from your emotions. That is very different. That, okay, I don't want to think about it, so let me do some painting. That's different. Whereas you use your painting or sculpting or singing or dancing to express your emotions, to be mindful about what you're feeling and to be able to express it through that form of art. And that is where art therapy works. So in fact, we do a lot of art therapy workshops as well at the 7th floor. So if you're following us, you can always join in if you're one of those people. And even otherwise, online, you'll get a lot of help, whether it's through information about how do you really communicate your feelings, how can you really express your emotions healthily. So learn a little bit about that. You don't have to just ignore them. I mean, there are illnesses like PTSD that our soldiers struggle with when they come back from war because they don't talk about what happened. And those soldiers who talk about what went on in the war, they were less likely to have those PTSD issues, which are your trauma. It's a disorder that you go through if you don't talk about it. So make sure that you use different ways to express your emotions. Ignoring doesn't mean that the problem is not there. It's just you're just suppressing it and it's probably getting worse. So that is for the men. For all the women, it is important to understand and break this unconscious bias. The same thing. We, in many ways, sort of want to mold them again in that category and stereotype them and box them. Again, it's important that we are mindful of our own biases against men. And very important that the men that you have in your life, you really ask them about how they're feeling, how they're emoting. Encourage them to seek help if required. Encourage them to seek help professionally if required. And that's important. If you are raising boys, your role is so much more important in this. Ask them about their emotions. What are they feeling? Acknowledge their emotions. Don't dismiss it, saying that's nothing, that's no big deal, or don't cry about this, it's not a big deal. Acknowledge that, yes, I understand what you're going through, etc. So that they learn that their emotions are not bad, that they don't have to wish them away, that they can express them. So a mother's role in this becomes extremely important. So yeah, these are the many different ways that we together all of us can come to break the whole stigma that is attached on men who are not looking outwardly strong, which means the men who are seeking support, seeking help. We need to break that stigma so that more and more men reach out to counselors when they are not feeling too good and do not take the drastic step of committing a suicide.
One last question. I'm sorry, I'm taking more time because Hamsaz, you said something very interesting during the conversation about reaching out to people and then at some stage taking that. The statistics, if from what you tell me, are so high, which means one, we are not opening up. Two, maybe even if we are, the world at large around us or the universe around is not equipped to help us that well. Okay, like you said, to talk to somebody, maybe a friend or somebody, because they themselves do not know. Like, see, today in a regular circumstances, you say, okay, if the child is feeling unwell or somebody is, this is what is do. Some experience or some background everybody really has, but it's not so much in our case. So at what stage do you think, or when do you decide that you should seek professional help? Because it's something that I think is required. So at what stage do you think one should seek professional help?
Right. Again, very important question, Vivek. Whenever you feel that your the emotion or the issue, etc., is interfering with your day-to-day life. So you see that, okay, it is impacting your productivity at work, or it's impacting your relationships because you're constantly irritated or angry, or it's impacting, overall your own happiness quotient, your peace of mind. And you have, to a certain extent, tried different things to resolve it yourself. Then don't wait too long. I always say this, but there is nothing wrong in having a mental health coach, just like, CEOs have coaches, sportsmen have coaches. We also have a mental health coach who becomes like a reflection sometimes who kind of guides us, sometimes who can help us discover the answers from within us and truly help us heal those emotions. So yes, whenever you feel your life is getting impacted by those emotions, don't wait, just seek help.
Thank you so much, Hamsa. That was really, really nice of you, and I'm so glad there's somebody like you who's a trained professional who's breaking these and pathways, because like I said earlier, men at all stages need help. I think it's great, and while you do this professionally, whether it is individuals or for corporates you're consulting, before we leave, is there any pointers, a couple of pointers that you'd leave us to think about or ruminate about, men's mental health,
So, just the last bit, maybe a quick sort of a summary of what we discussed is what I would like. I think if I have made you think a little bit about this issue, then we've done our bit of creating awareness. It's important to understand that mental health of men is getting impacted on account of the false toxic masculinity that we expect men to fall in. The whole sort of stereotyping where men have to keep emotions to themselves, do not have to emote, be outwardly strong, be self-sufficient, not ask for help, not talk about their stresses. These are the things that are coming in their way of dealing with issues. And issues are going to be there through the lifespan. So, very important to encourage the men to open up about issues of mental health, to talk about it. There is no stigma. We need to change it as a society, and the more men open up about it, the easier it becomes for the newer generation also to talk about it. To do that, and hopefully we will have men who have much healthier mental health.
Thank you so much for having me here today, Hamsaz. That was really, really nice. And I'm glad we had this discussion. It's very open, and to bring your personal experiences out. I know how much it would have taken for me to put it out there. But I think thank you so much because you inspire. I think this could have happened. So thank you so much for everything, Hamza.
Thank you, Vivek, for joining in and asking all those important questions and making sure that we sort of cover a lot of the areas on the mental health of men in the short 15 minutes, I think, or whatever time that it is. I think it will be longer. But thank you so much for being here, and see you soon.
Catch you soon. Bye. See ya.